Hey everybody, it's Norm from Tested, and today we're going to talk about this wide range of products I got in front of me. This is the Xreal lineup of their smart glasses. They're what they can finally proudly say augmented reality glasses. If you might recall, over a year ago, beginning of 2023, I reviewed the Xreal Airs. That's what they were called back then, Xreal, before they changed their name to Xreal. And I like these glasses. You know, they look like sunglasses. That was the whole ethos behind the company when they had their Xreal lights and Xreal Airs, is what technology could they pack into this glasses form factor that would give them some type of augmented reality display potential, but also be socially acceptable. And it's not like I'm wearing these as sunglasses. I'm not walking around the city putting these on. These are media devices, media consumption devices, where I'm going to be wearing them at home on the couch, at my desk, or on a train or a plane ride. But it's still important, I think, to get over that socially acceptable, barrier of having something that looks almost and can pass off almost like a normal pair of glasses, or in this case, sunglasses. I think goes a long way to making these more socially acceptable. You're going to get a lot fewer weird looks. And so what they were able to put in here it was pretty impressive. 2 micro OLED displays made by Sony, a little bigger than half an inch in diameter, and through pretty conventional birdbath optics. So a mirror here, optics here, bouncing light back and forth into your eyeballs. You get 2 1080, pretty crisp and bright OLED screens, allowing you to screen mirror from a tablet, a phone, Android phone, or something like a game console, like a Steam Deck. And I actually really like using this as a display for the Steam Deck. Steam Deck, your MacBook Pros or MacBooks these days have DisplayPort out on their USB-C port. So you can plug literally this directly into the Steam Deck, get video out, because these are otherwise don't have any additional processing. They have the displays, there are speakers here on the arms, but there's no battery in here. There's no actual processing here. Everything happens on the device that you're plugging this into. And the device, for the most part, is just going to be video out. Your iPhone 15 Pros, your MacBook or iPad Pros since 2018 model allows screen mirroring. My issue with the Xreal Airs back then was that's all it did. It was fixed in position. This kind of narrow 46-degree diagonal FOV, field of view, floating image in front of you. While it was crisp, it was big, and it was ergonomically great. The image was locked. You had no tracking, no 3-degree of freedom rotational tracking, definitely no 6-degree of freedom positional tracking. It was just like a locked-in image in front of you. Now, if you're good at keeping your head still and your body still, that might work for you. I'm not. So the images would kind of bounce around. Not great when I'm darting my eyes and playing a video game. Things change. So since then, they released this last year. I didn't really get to review it. This is the Beam. And the Beam is a dedicated processor that attempted to solve that problem. It's an intermediate layer device. As opposed to plugging the Airs directly into your phone or game console, you would pass it through the Beam, which has 2 USB-C ports, one for the glasses, one for your power or your input. And that would actually enable 3-degree of freedom, rotational tracking, because there actually were gyros and are gyros in the Air glasses. And so the system became Steam Deck to Beam, then to the glasses, and then the image would actually be fixed in some type of rotational 3-degree of freedom space. So I could move my head, and yes, it would clip the edges of the field of view, but at least it would be more comfortable. And the Beam also allowed for adjustment of how big I wanted that image to be or how far it seemed away from me. Really important for comfort. The difference between having something that seems like it's 24 inches big but really close, or something that's 300 inches big but far away. They might seem like the pixels are the same size, but in terms of comfort, I'd rather have an image seem like it's bigger but farther away. And you could do that with the Beam. Later on, there were updates that allowed you to sideload applications like Netflix or file browsers, or you do some media playback, but also imperfect as a product. One, because even though you had 2 USB-C ports, there was no way to power your phone or your Steam Deck in addition to using it as a DisplayPort input. and then passing it through your glasses. You would have to buy an additional splitter to power your device, and then also power the Beam Pro, and then or the Beam, and then also power the Airs. It would be dongle town all over again. And if you were breaking this out on an airplane, really, really unwieldy. People did it, don't get me wrong, but inelegant. The Beam also got really hot. The processing required to keep the image at low latency fixed in place, and or also to decode video if you're running Netflix, for example, killed the battery, made this really hot, ergonomically, just not great to have this, on your lap or in your pocket as you're playing a game and wearing the glasses. Still, a neat device and solved what I wanted out of the original Airs, which was to have an image kind of fixed at least in rotational space. Since then, they've released new glasses and another new accessory. The glasses, the follow-ups to the Airs, or the Air 2s and the Air 2 Pros, slightly different micro OLED displays, slightly different field of views, some trade-offs, maybe a little more durable, and also the Pros allowed for built-in opacity, electrochromatic opacity changing. So there'll be a button on the Air 2 Pros where you can press them and adjust between 0%, 35%, and 100% light pass-through. So if you wanted to watch a movie, you would be completely blacked out from the outside world. The Air ones, you had to actually put on a cover if you wanted to block out the outside world. So nice feature for the Air 2 Pros to have that built in as something you can actually adjust on the fly. Still, what the dream was, though, you would want something that would give maybe 6 degrees of freedom control, or also let you not have to use your phone to use it as a media control device. And so at this past year's Augmented World Expo, we had the launch of the Beam Pro. Beam Pro. Different form factor, very different devices. This looks like a phone. It's kind of basically a phone. It's kind of like an Android tablet in a phone form factor. 6.5-inch display, LCD screen, even has a front-facing camera. We'll talk about the cameras on the back. Entry-level Qualcomm Snapdragon system-on-chip processor, 128 gigs of storage with expandable micro SD card slot storage, and Wi-Fi only on this model, although some cellular connected models I think are coming out in the future. But for $200, this becomes a dedicated application launcher that runs Xreal's Nebula operating system and allows you to stream, play games without having to dedicate your phone, your tablet, or if you don't care about the game console aspect, and power these Air glasses. Now, because it's an Android device, you can run basically whatever you want on here. There's a Play Store, you can download Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, whatever you want, Plex, VLC. You can sideload media on here, and it runs their Nebula OS as an application. So primarily it's Android, but it launches their My Glasses app when you plug the Airs in or the Air 2s in. It knows that when you plug the glasses in, and what you see is kind of a imitation, fair to say ripoff of the Apple Vision Pro user interface. These floating grid of circular app icons. And from there, you don't have eye tracking, you have head tracking for rotation, but you're actually using the Beam Pro itself as a gyroscopic laser pointer. The Beam can do this as well. It's kind of like your LG TV or remote. It knows where you're pointing, and you have a button on the screen itself that becomes like an activation touchpad button, and you can point and launch your apps. What's neat, though, is with 6 gigs of RAM, you can launch now 2 applications side by side. You can do the same thing that Beam could do, move them closer, move them further away, but you could have a landscape, large size Netflix window, and then you could have like the Reddit app on the side. It can be scrolling. Those apps are rarely filling the field of view that the Airs have, so you're still moving your head left and right to get them in, but I found that okay. Actually, the limiting field of view of the Airs, I didn't find as restrictive as I thought they'd be, because I'm primarily looking at that one centerpiece media content, and I actually like being able to look down and see the Beam Pros or see my phone as I was, typing in the name of whatever movie I'm searching for, or typing an email, because you can anytime switch back to the Android interface and open apps normally on the phone as well. The issue becomes, as with the Beam, performance, and the Beam got hot. It overheated constantly. The Beam Pro also not the best in terms of performance. When you have a full 4K video running and you have YouTube TV, for example, and you're opening Gmail, frames are going to drop. In fact, the applications aren't even optimized to take advantage of the DRM limitations that these apps and these streaming services require to get them working. So while Netflix and Disney Plus works fine, Prime Video and Hulu, actually, as of right now, playback isn't even allowed because it thinks that you're plugging this into a device that doesn't have DRM authentication, doesn't pass through HTTP certification, and so you're just going to get this black image. And Xreal has acknowledged this. They're supposedly updating their applications to allow for the DRM certification, but at the expense of performance. And what that means is that dream of getting multiple applications here, just 2 applications running smoothly side by side, still isn't quite there yet with the hardware they're able to put in the Beam Pro. But watching a single movie, watching a single window of Netflix, or doing something lightweight seems to be okay right now. This also has 2 USB-C ports, but unlike the Beam, no more DisplayPort direct input. There's no way to plug in your Steam Deck into the Beam Pro to give it that 3 degree of freedom, smooth rotational movement. It's a conscious decision, I think, by them to separate this from the Beam, which I think they're phasing out as well. So if you want to get like a game console on here, you have to go through some type of wireless streaming. We have to mirror it over Steam Link, or you have to use Moonlight if you want to stream from your PC, which adds a little bit of latency. It's going to be dependent on whatever Wi-Fi network you're on. It's a little bit disappointing because I thought the original Beam's low latency direct DisplayPort input worked pretty well despite the overheating and the battery limitations. The other unique thing about the Beam Pro is they put a stereo camera system on the back. Now, this is more side-by-side 3D stereo photos and video. So unlike something like the Insta360 here that I use to capture full 180-degree side-by-side video, VR 180 style video, this is more akin to what the iPhone 15 Pro can do with its cameras and for what Apple calls its spatial video. The cameras on the Beam Pro, I think, are actually better than what the iPhone 15 Pro can deliver for video, because it can actually do 1080 per eye at 60 frames a second. The iPhone can only do 30 frames a second. And I had a really great time using this, going to the playground, capturing video with my kids. Stereo video is just so powerful in terms of making it feel like the video is more alive, especially at the higher frame rates. The challenge is, though, it is a separate device. And fundamentally, I have no problem with carrying an extra device, especially if I'm using this as a media player, having this in my backpack where the Airs are also going to live. But when you're with your family, it's hard to get over the friction of carrying 2 cameras. I have my iPhone, and I love the camera on this. And yes, it can capture 3D spatial video, but it can't do spatial photos. And if I take photos on with the iPhone, I may be hoping down the line that there's going to be good software and good models, training models for AI to upconvert those photos into 3D photos. If I take 3D photos natively, yeah, I can take them with this, and these 50 megapixel sensors are going to get me true side-by-side 3D, but it's at the expense of the higher quality, in my opinion, 2D photo that I can get with my iPhone or my dedicated mirrorless camera. You're making that choice of whether to take something natively in 3D now and have the better 3D video quality now, or taking the better 2D image or video now and hoping that some type of AI upconvert scaling system will give you that 3D experience in the future. I think for video, I would want to take native 3D video. For photos, I'm actually happier with having 2D photos that more people can enjoy today. So I'm taking a lot of 3D videos with the Beam Pro, more 2D photos just with my iPhone now that I'm happy to try to upconvert later. All this leads to is the full AR experience, which is these guys. These are the Xreal 2 Ultras. The highest end glasses they now are releasing primarily as a developer kit, because these have 2 sensors that look like cameras on the side, but they're not like the cameras on the side of these Meta Ray-Bans. They're not for taking photos. These are to give these glasses real 6 degree of freedom positional tracking. So when you wear this and you plug it into a Beam Pro, use Nebula OS on your Android device, you can actually physically move around and the image will stay locked in space. The tracking is pretty good. The icons, the video, and even the demo applications they have, the tracking doesn't seem to drift and the images seem locked in place and does kind of even do some meshing of the environment you're in. But beyond that extra level of comfort that you get from having the UI locked in space, there are a bunch of trade-offs. One, you get another performance hit. Again, no processors actually on these glasses. The Beam Pro is doing all the work. And when you have what they call space anchor, so 6 degree of freedom turned on, frames are being dropped, performance, video playback is just not as smooth, noticeably not as smooth. An additional feature that the Ultras have is also hand tracking. It's a beta feature right now, but if you don't want to use the Beam Pro as your gyroscopic laser pointer, turn on hand tracking and it works kind of well. There's no eye tracking, but your pinch and tap your fingers to activate an application is ergonomically more comfortable than holding a small phone-like device in your hand. Also gives a performance hit and a little bit of heating. There is something on the side of the left temple of these glasses I could feel getting hotter when I had 6 degree of freedom tracking turned on, when I had the hand tracking turned on. And there isn't beyond that much else you can do. The applications are scarce right now. Developers are just getting this in hand. And at that price point, not for the vast majority of users who just want to have some comfortable media playback when they're traveling or when they're at home on the couch. There are slight optical differences they use between the Airs, the Air 2/Pros, and the Ultras. The Ultras are closer to the first generation Airs in terms of the size of the image, the field of view, and the edge sharpness. And what I would say is go look at the price of the Airs today, first gen Airs. When they launched, they were well over $400. They've dropped down to under $200 I've seen lately. And with Xreal kind of phasing out the beams, I've seen it drop. You can get a used one for under $50. So if you're talking about like $250 for a first gen beam and a first gen Air that you can get 3 degree of freedom pass through on the Steam Deck, I think that's actually a really, really compelling price. And that's one of the things with this company. They're iterating fast. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they're on some type of annual hardware cadence with their accessories, with the glasses, by next year, Augmented World Expo, or maybe even CES, we might see another generation of the Air glasses. So it's one of those product lines where look to last year's product and see what you can get that at, because at full native price, it's still a hard sell with the quirks that they have in the hardware, the firmware, and the software. I do like that based on the past 2 years, their hardware team has been releasing firmware updates, improve performance of the devices. Now there's 120 hertz on the Airs, which weren't at launch. You can even do side-by-side 3D, but if you plug into a Windows PC and hold buttons for a certain amount of time. So there are things that the community are requesting and the hardware team's actually delivering on. It's on the software side right now for the Beam Pro and the performance of the system-on-chip processor that they chose for the Beam Pro that I feel like it's a little bit limiting for this collection of devices. And there are a lot of them. I'm sure there'll be more next year. My recommendation, check out the first gen Airs, check out the Beam, hold off on the Beam Pro until they figure out the DRM for those applications, and leave the Ultra for developers and people who are hardcore enthusiasts to figure out before even taking a look at those. These are the ones I like traveling with now, the Air ones. They work really well. The audio sounds good, and no one gives me weird looks when I wear this on the airplane because they kind of look just like sunglasses. If you have questions about Xreal Air, Air 2, Air 2 Pro, Air 2 Ultras, Beam Pro, I know it's a lot of products, kind of gets confusing, post them in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer them. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you guys so much for watching that video. I would be remiss if I didn't tell you we have some excellent merch. We have a 5-pack of demerit badges for sale right now at tested/store.com. We've got the I hung it off of level demerit badge, the I built the chair backwards demerit badge, the I hit my thumb with a hammer demerit badge. We've got the stapler in my finger demerit badge, and my favorite, I stuck the duct tape to itself demerit badge. Get yours now, tested/store.store. Tested. It's right here. There. Just click there.